recently with Buying Beverly Hills. What a great show that is.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
Tell me about what it was like working on a show like that because you sort of have to follow these transactions and like whatever happens in business. How is that shooting a show like that?
It's an interesting challenge, and especially since there's so many real estate shows out there selling sunset. It's really trying to figure out not only how do you follow those things, but how do you follow it in a way that makes your show stand out from all the others.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing that we really try to infuse into all the real estate and the transactions and seeing how these people work in that world is always bringing it back to, family and their friends. And every time you could infuse that story into what was happening with the real estate, it just made it so much easier to follow their journey and like how the process actually goes. And you don't tune out, your eyes don't glaze over, you're invested. So that was, a challenge, but I feel like we handled that pretty well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, plus you're kind of working with an old pro. I mean, Mauricio knows what he's doing. I mean, he's been on the. Was that part of the reason why this project was attractive is because you did have somebody who was dynamic and kind of knew how this all went down.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, we have kind of had this project in the can for a while because we just knew we wanted to work with Mauricio. Like, not only is he married to Kyle Richards, but yeah, he created this incredible agency that it's so funny because when I first started on the show, I didn't see many agencies, but the minute I started on the show, I realized how many there were all over the place.
Yeah.
And then when I met him, and he's just so charismatic and such a good guy, and he just wants things to go well and he wants to put his best foot forward. So he was so easy to work with. And, he was the bread and butter. He's the reason the show exists. He's why it's so successful.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And and it was nice because you did make him the focus of the show because you do have all those housewives buzzing around there. How did you kind of make sure though that it stayed focused without all the stuff that's kind of the minutia that was going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the crux of the show is this family dynasty. So it was really easy to always kind of bring it around to him because his daughters are in this business. Everybody knows the background with his wife. So, he was the one that everybody wanted there when it was important. And so we used him when he was necessary, and everything led back to him just through the other characters. So you didn't feel overwhelmed by his presence. You didn't think he was like just kind of popping in all the time for no reason. Like he was present even when he wasn't present.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So going on this journey, what was it like following the transactions, the interactions, the relationships? Was anything like a little surprising or shocking? Did you find you guys having to pivot in some weird directions with it or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't think we had to pivot so much as pick our people that we wanted to follow. We had an enormous cast when we went into it, and it was really about figuring out which characters really popped and fed into what the show really was about, which was family in like a cutthroat industry.
Mhm.
So that was the biggest challenge for us, was because they were all amazing, and figuring out those storylines that we felt like the audience would connect with, and then whittling it down to the people that you see now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And then also, just like you had mentioned, the Selling Sunset, it's interesting because I've covered that show. I've also covered a lot of Million Dollar Listing.
Mhm.
And Million Dollar Listing and Selling Sunset have this interesting little feud going, where the Million Dollar Listing people said the Selling Sunset people are fake and all that. Like, did you guys kind of get wrapped up in any of that drama or you?
Oh my God, 100%. I think our biggest challenge with the show was knowing that we were going to be compared to those shows and how do you stand out? And so, you know, it's true. Like, I think when you look at a Selling Sunset, the characters are a little bit TV friendly, and our characters, I feel like, are very authentic, and they just are who they are. And so when we set out to do this show, it was like, there's authenticity on our side, and there's this family bond on our side. And so we really sought out to make this about the family dynasty. Everything that we did in that show from the B-roll to the music to the scene work went through the lens of the Umansky family dynasty. And so it's fun to see now, like on Twitter, a lot of people are like, this show is Succession meets Housewives meets Selling Sunset. And that's exactly what we were going for. It was not on accident. That's what we wanted.
That's amazing. So yeah, so it did set itself apart. I mean, you do have the very, very gorgeous real estate. Like you did, was that hard kind of picking and choosing? Because there's so many beautiful properties that they're handling.
Oh yeah, 100%. And John from the show, it was an amazing help in getting those, like that $139 million mansion. He was if it wasn't for him, that wouldn't have been on the show. And yeah, it's hard to pick and choose, but like, what a good problem to have.
Yeah. Now, did you have homeowners that pushed back, or was like, you had something beautiful and they were like, no?
Yeah, there was some of that. And there's always like people who have, we don't want you to show this and that, but that's common. But for the most part, our interactions with people were really easy and they were just excited to help us out, which is nice.
That's good. You getting to season 2?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
I mean, fingers crossed. We would love that, obviously, and hopefully we find out soon.
Yeah, no, I know. I thought for sure that was already like a done deal. Okay. Now, it's interesting. Your resume, you have such a vast experience working on different types of reality shows. You've got Housewives. By the way, the new Summer House trailer just dropped. My mind is blown. But you have like those interactions with just relationships. And then this, the Pawn Stars, the working side too, you've done. How is it different kind of shooting just the relationships where in a house drinking and partying versus, these people are working like Mauricio and his daughters?
Yeah, I mean, every show is different in every genre. And I have, like you said, I've done a lot of different genres, which is awesome because you never get bored. I think it's interesting because some of the formats like Pawn Stars and where you're just an follow, it's nice because you get to kind of have a format. And so you know what each episode is. And so you kind of shoot for that. And you have a lot of wiggle room on how to play those kinds of episodes. Docuseries are just a giant puzzle and you could put it back together a million different ways. So it's such a challenge. But I love that challenge. Like I love getting in there and trying to figure out what's the best story, what's the best way to show these characters. So every show is a different journey. Okay.
Yeah. And I know like with Housewives, I know you did New Jersey. You had some very big characters there. Which seasons did you work on? The beginning?
8 and 9.
8 and 9. Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, and so what was that experience like going through? Because those are some pretty intense relationships that you were filming.
Oh, yeah. Any housewife is going to be intense with the cast, especially Teresa Giudice. But it was a really awesome experience, actually, because everybody was a good sport and they really just wanted the show to do well. So they were actually really great to work with. And I was in the season where they introduced Jen and, oh my God, I'm blanking on her name.
Not Margaret.
But Margaret was also an addition during my season. Yeah. And then I want to call her Janet, and I know that's not right. Well, the other.
Yeah. New people.
And that was so much fun because, they're all new to the journey. And so they're going in and they're trying to put their self out there to make it like, I deserve to be here. So, it's juggling a lot of personalities. But in the end, it's fun and they all just want what's best for the show. So
yeah, well, it's still gone.
Yeah. They're doing something right.
Yeah. And it's been so interesting watching this like trajectory of reality documentary filmmaking, because like back when the Housewives came out, it was, in the real world, it was like, oh my God, it was so shocking and stuff. And now, like you said, the competition is stiff. You have all these streaming services, you have Bravo, everything. As a producer, what do you kind of look for in a project that you think is going to resonate with your demographic?
When I'm trying to pick a project to work on, is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, or pitch one, or what do you think? Because what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the biggest thing is obviously the personality and having a big personality that will resonate on screen. To me, I really gravitate towards authentic characters, and that's one of the things that really drew me into Buying Beverly Hills. I just think it's so much easier and to work with people like that, and stories have so much more stakes when you're authentic. So that's probably the biggest thing I look for, and stuff that I just love. Like, I mean, Housewives is just it's your candy. And I'm also a YA buff, so anything that kind of skews that way, like the Hype House, I mean, that's right up my alley.
Yeah, and that is interesting. You know, you mentioned authenticity because I was talking to somebody, a hair and makeup artist who does Below Deck, and she started in the beginning, and it is interesting. In the beginning, it was like yachties. They were there to do their job, and now we do have people macking for the camera, people there to be famous, and we see that with Housewives. How do you kind of avoid that as a producer to get the authenticity out of people instead of having them just wanting to be a reality star?
Yeah, no, that's a tough one. And I think it really has more to do with the casting than it does with having a cast and then trying to change them.
Yeah.
But like Selling Sunset's a good example. Like those women are glammed up to the nines. They have the dresses. They look freaking fantastic.
Yeah.
No hate. I love it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you go to something like Buying Beverly Hills, and they're very much more subdued, very much more natural. Obviously, they have makeup on, but like it's a different vibe. So I think it's not something you can avoid, honestly, because the more popular you get, the more they're going to go down that alley. So I think the best rule of thumb is get them authentic at the start.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And then what is your opinion on producers being involved in storylines? I know there's some that are like, we aren't going to touch anything, you go. But then you've heard on some productions where the producer will kind of come in and whisper, hey, she's saying this about you. And then the drama ensues, or some of the women will self-produce. Where do you stand kind of on all that?
I like to be as hands-off as possible. If it comes from them, I mean, the audience is smart, right? They can tell when a producer stepped in and was like, you should say this. So for me, I love to err on the side of letting them be authentic. Of course, sometimes you have to remind people of things, or just be like, hey, we need this scene because it happened off camera. And that kind of stuff is just natural in the reality TV world. But me, authenticity is way better. Okay. I got to stop saying the word authentic.
Yeah, no, and that is good because when you watch Buying Beverly Hills, it is first of all a beautiful production. I mean, it's just fabulous and so fun and easy to watch. But it is good to know that you guys were just behind the camera and they were doing their thing. So
yeah.
And
they also come to us and they're like, should I talk about this? And I'm like, do you want to? Because we'll love it, but you tell us.
Yeah. No, but that's and again, they are pros. Like they know what's going on. They were I'm also wondering, what is your opinion on the trajectory too of the whole genre? Because like we're seeing, like on Bravo, we have the Housewives, and the demographic skews a little older, but we're seeing these young shows coming up with very young people. Don't know if they're hitting or not. That's the thing. Who do you think is watching reality television?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think, because reality TV became big when I was in like my 20s, and it's been 20 years. So those people who started when it first came out are now adults. So I think the range of people watching reality TV is very large. And the thing that's really interesting about docuseries is I think they're always going to be there. I think they just kind of evolve in like shows like Wags, where it's basically housewives, but it's housewives of, women, wives and girlfriends of NBA players. And then there's always those shows like Laguna Beach for the young audience. I would love more of those kind of shows, but I think the thing that's hard with the younger audience is their attention span's short. They have YouTube, they have TikTok. And so getting them to watch those kinds of shows is very difficult. So I think in the docuseries space, it's more of the older generation watching, but who knows? Things change constantly in this industry.
Yeah, no, well, I agree with you. That's why I'm curious, because I know Bravo had this wonderful show about girlfriends in Paris. The women on the show were all my kids' ages. Now it was lovely, and but my kids weren't watching it. I would watch, and so I was curious that next generation of viewers, what you guys are thinking of as far as to get their attention. So
I think it's something, honestly, the whole industry is struggling with. And I don't think anybody has hit the nail on the head yet. And hopefully somebody figures it out, and we can all copy that.
Yeah, those Gen Z kids, it is hard because, my kids don't watch TV. They on their phone. But they know what I watch. And then as far as like ratings go, I find ratings to be fascinating. I know during the pandemic, they were great. And now there's so many different platforms. Like, what do you consider to be good ratings for a show?
Well, it's funny because obviously for Netflix, they don't tell you like ratings. So for me to judge if something's doing well, if it's trending or if it's top 10, even if it's just for a short period of time, for me, I feel like that's a win.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because these streaming services, you'd have no idea.
Yeah. It's tough. You kind of just have to blindly go off of the feedback that you're getting from the audience, what you're seeing on Twitter, like the feedback from your network execs, how they see it going. It's a challenge.
That's scary. That is going in blind, because that for the second season, you just don't know.
Exactly. I want to know.
Like, I thought for sure you were going to be like, oh yeah, we're already filming season 2. So, okay, interesting. So do you have something you are currently working on?
So I actually, my day-to-day job is actually in development. So I have probably like 10 projects at a time. One of the projects that we have coming out soon at Wheelhouse is called Secret Chef, and it's going to be on Hulu. Ooh. That's one I'm incredibly excited about because I helped develop it. I cut the sizzle reel for it. And I think that show is just super fun. I can't like explain what it is yet because it's not out there, but like, it's just a fun, quirky show that, the showrunner, Patrick Doody, had an amazing vision for, and he pulled it off. So I can't wait for that one to air. And then on my own side, I have a project called Splintered, which is a scripted show. Splintered is a book by A.G. Howard, and it's kind of like, it's this typical teenager who realizes that Wonderland is real, and that in order to break the curse on her family, she has to go back to Wonderland and fix all the problems that the original Alice created, because Alice, well, the little girl that Alice is based off of is her great-great-grandmother. And so, but when she goes into Wonderland, she realizes that it's much more dark and twisted than she thought. It tips Wonderland on its head. So there's that nostalgia of Wonderland, but it's like you're re-exploring and relearning things that you didn't know. And so I read that book and I fell in love with it, and I could like see it while I was reading as a show. So I optioned the IP for it and packaged it with a pretty good, well-known showrunner and production company. And we're pitching that right now.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. This was a blast. Gives me a lot more insight. All right, well, I'm going to manifest season 2 of Buying Beverly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yes.
If we get a season 2, I'll be like, it was Gina.
It was you.